Hello! Now that we have our introductions out of the way, let's go ahead and travel over to the left um, navigation bar, I'll call it, and right underneath the home label is the word syllabus. I'm a big picture person, and maybe not all of you are. Maybe some of you would rather look at the modules bit by bit. But I'm going to start us here just so you know that this tool is here for you in case you just kind of want to see the scope and sequence. And like I said, if I really recommend that you map out the course for you in terms of how long you want it to take and how many hours you're committing to it per week and which days and even which times. So just a little tip of the trick of the trade if you have not taken online classes before. So here's the big picture idea, and you'll see some repeat of information here, the course description and the course overview. We have 5 modules here, just as was mentioned on the intro screen. Each module is led by objectives. Each objective page is going to then be, all the objectives will then be followed by readings and resources, and each at the end of each module, we'll have a task or project that it's ungraded, but will eventually roll into a final portfolio. It's explained here, but let me just kind of give you the big picture of where we're going with this. Every module is theme-based, has readings and sometimes videos to go with it. And of those, what we're going to be doing is using those as kind of fuel to our fire. If you look back up at the objectives, I like patterns, like I mentioned earlier, and we're going to look at why. And as we explore the why, we're going to be looking for the why in the readings. As we start sort of framing the why for us, the what will come into play, and that is to say that what this could look like in my classroom. How do I know when I'm seeing project-based and problem-based assessments? What will that look like for me? And then finally moving to how will I do it in my class? And that's where the project comes in. And every module, like I said, will have a mini version of the project. So for your first one, there's 4 things that I want you to include, and the final item of each this is supposed to match up with the content, obviously, and then the final project is going to be basically a redone lesson. And when I am using some vague terms on purpose, it may be one single assessment. I know this is a 1-hour class. If you start in at a unit level and don't get it completed, I just want to see some sense of completion as you are like a completed thought of some sort. So I apologize for all these things popping up on my computer right now. Okay, anyway, what we need here is for you to think of this in terms of a makeover for a lesson that you've taught before or a traditional lesson that you want to transform. You may already be doing some of this in your class, so maybe you're going to just kick it up a notch, but we want to have a little bit of the before and after. I also want the very final project to be something that somebody else, you could share it with your department or across the curriculum or with another school, and they could get it. So we want to have enough detail that somebody else on the outside could look at it. So let's go ahead and jump into the modules, and this will be your introduction for module 1. I will do one of these videos for each module. You'll always find the videos in the overview and objectives. You already found this one. You'll see this will look very similar. This is our read and watch. These are all of the links and items to read. Now you might go beyond this, or you might find that some of these have some overlap or have links to other interesting things. They'll let you kind of guide your own reading. There's not going to be a content quiz. We're just going to have a checkoff quiz. Yes, I finished this module type of thing rather than a whole content quiz. Now I went up to the module button to get us to this page, but you can also click on next, and if I click on next, then I'm going to see what my assessment piece is. And as you can see, there's no assignment, there's no points for this, but it will roll into your final project, so it kind of chunks it down. And by checking off that yes, I finished module 1, you're saying I've also finished portfolio installment number 1. If you ever want me to look at something, you can certainly send it, but I'm not going to grade it module by module. It'll be a one hit wonder, one grade wonder class. Let's talk a little bit about this module and what the content is. briefly here so that we can all be on the same page. As you can see from the title, we're going to try to either recreate or start from scratch with problem-based and project-based assessments. Sometimes we see inquiry-based in that whole mix, and I like to think of inquiry-based as sort of the maybe the umbrella or the parachute for all of this, and the problem and project-based are different manifestations of what it can look like. You can't, I don't know that you can really have problem-based without inquiry or project-based without inquiry. What we're going to be looking for is specifically why we assess. Why are we giving a test? And I know that this is sort of a buzz issue right now. Just watched the CNN interview of Nancy Altwell winning her $1 million education Nobel Prize, and she made a really strong statement about testing and standards and that kind of thing. Could you remove that albatross for just a moment? It's not going away, but we still have control over what we do in our classrooms. I believe that very strongly. And if we're really talking about student learning and student thinking, then a test is just one more way to assess. But what are we going to do to make our assessments real life experiences, relevant to students' futures, and really engaging in critical thinking? Sometimes when we think of authentic assessments, we feel that maybe we're dumbing down a test. No, I believe that we can actually get to the highest levels of Bloom's taxonomy by looking at how we assess. Let's also look at the fact that we're not looking for student compliance here. We're looking for student learning. We think that it's easy for us to fall into that trap of getting students to, it's checking to see if they were really paying attention in class rather than seeing if they really are learning. And what does that learning look like? Moving down to the what features and assessments make a learning experience more authentic to the learner or make them more engaged in the learning process? What draws out that critical thinking element? And here's the thing, how are we going to know that we saw it? So that kind of moves to the next thing. So we're going to move from a little bit backwards to forwards. What is our big picture objective for this lesson that we're thinking about? And I'd encourage you right now, even before you begin the readings, to think of that one unit, that one test, that one paper that you would like to transform, that you just don't love teaching it and the students aren't responding well to it. You're not getting, you always end up disappointed with the results. I'm guessing that you have one of those. I know I do. I'm going to just throw out for you one of mine, and it's the research paper, the research-driven paper. It could be an argument paper, it could be an expository paper, but it's a sticking point with me. I know that students need to write, but does it have to be a traditional paper? So I'm going to play with that idea, and I'm going to think about how can I take my traditional paper, the way I've always taught it, note cards, outline, multiple drafts. How can I take those skills? What do I really want students to do? What am I really after when I'm having them do a research paper? Yes, there's some standards involved, but there's wiggle room within those standards. I'm going to look at my standards. I'm going to look at, of course, what my school requires of me on this, but I'm going to see if I really have to, first of all, do a traditional paper. Second of all, I'm going to think about where I lose them. And as I'm thinking of all of these things, I'm going to move to the research and see if from these readings and research I can find something that might start answering my question. So the first reading of this time is actually a YouTube, and it's going to link when I get this course all refined. And it's going to be a brief history of assessment via YouTube. It's kind of a fun little cartoony type video. We have a YouTube video on authentic learning and what it is, what it looks like, how we're going to define it. A lot of definitions going on here. We're going to look at an overview of formative and summative assessments, because I think part of what we need to consider is that if I'm relying on the end product of my research paper to show me what students learn, I'm missing a lot of opportunities along the way. So I think we need to get a grasp on this idea of formative and summative assessments and what parts are graded and what are we doing when we're grading something. What is that grade indicative of? This little video here is just really good food for thought in terms of how are we asking questions of students? What tasks are we giving them that might be contributing to the kind of responses we're getting? And project-based learning, a YouTube on that, a definition of project-based, and a really great explanation of these two items here in the PBL versus PBL. So, in other words, it's all kind of alphabet soup, but just so you can kind of separate them out and see what they are. I'm not really hung up on definitions except to power us up for what we're looking for in our new assessment. So I don't really care if your assessment fits your new lesson, your revised lesson fits one of these definitions perfectly. I'm looking for a transformation that's purpose driven and that is getting students to think and really draws out the kind of learning we want to see happen. So that brings us then to the portfolio installment number 1. You'll be, for this unit, you're going to be identifying, like I said before, a unit of study, a lesson. Keep it general. It can be big, it can be small, but remember, you have limited time to work on this. If you want to make it big and only have part of it done, that's acceptable. What are we going to make over in terms of some of these new models and looking for student-led learning experiences? And when I say this, we're talking about taking the teacher off of the focus a little bit here, and we'll get into that more in the next module. Okay, describe the lesson briefly, maybe like a before and after, the objectives and standards on which you plan to assess student learning. Describe what you've used before and what you would normally have done for this lesson if it's a new lesson. And then let's talk about what's your big picture, bird's eye vision for the new unit. What are you going to use for formative and summative assessments? Describe them. This can be done in a chart. This can be done in paragraphs. This can be done in a combination of things. If you want to create a video and send it out to me, I don't care. As long as, not send it out to me, but build it into your portfolio, that's fine. As long as these 4 things are answered. And you can, anything you research, please cite, but please know that if you find something that works for you as is and you know how it's going to fit in, you can take things from other free sources that are open public domain types of resources and import them into your portfolio and say, I want to use this, and then start creating it and making it into your own. So just want you to know that you don't have to start from scratch and everything. You can find cool stuff out there. I know some of my new teachers that I'm working with in a writing class right now are loving them some Pinterest, and there's all sorts of resources out there for teacher materials. So don't feel like you have to start from scratch on everything. Enjoy this, embrace this, enjoy being a student again, and let me know if you have any questions by sending me an email. Thanks.